You've saved 1.8 million for retirement, but how much of it is really yours? In this Retire Stronger episode, we reveal the surprising tax bite and how smart planning can save you hundreds of thousands.
Hello, and welcome back to Retire Stronger, the podcast where we give you the clarity, confidence, and control you need to retire on your terms. I'm John Foard, and with me, as always, is my co host, Bill Kearney. Bill, today is our 25th episode. Quite the milestone, I would say.
It is quite a milestone. I was kind of wondering when my first paycheck's going to come through for these podcasts. We're 25 deep, but should I be expecting something in the mail, John?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking for mine as well. So,
Mm.
it's pretty funny. I don't know, it's been a fun ride so far doing these podcasts, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from folks. And which brings me to something that I'd like to say. If anybody out there listening has a topic or an idea for our next episode, please shoot us an email or reach out by phone and let us know what your thoughts are. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
And
John, by the way, I think that we should revisit a historical figure and give ourselves a small pat on the back, and then after that, we'll move on. But as I
Absolutely.
understand it, I think 90% of people who start out with a podcast don't make it past episode 3.
That is a statistic that we
No, I
have heard.
I may have just made that up. I don't know. Sounds right though. It sounds like something I've heard, and I'm wondering what the number is that get to 25 or 20. So, hey, congratulations to us. But really, the reason we do this is that we love financial education.
hmm
We love our clients, and we love spreading financial education to as many people as we can. Financial literacy, whatever you want to call it. And there's so many complex topics, so many complex things out there. I know for me, I can probably speak for you on this. That's really what drives us, and we enjoy doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Well said. And today, what we're going to talk about and what we're going to tackle is a question we hear from clients quite often. It usually comes out in some variation of, "Hey, I've saved up to $1.8 million for retirement. How much of that is really mine, and how much will the IRS take?" Or they may say, "How much will I owe in taxes?" And that's kind of what they mean. How much of that belongs to the IRS? And we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to, you know, this episode was kind of spurred on by a common theme within our financial planning practice and a lot of the clients that we work with. So, and that's just not a curiosity question that we get from most people. It's the question that determines how you live in retirement, quite frankly, and how long your money lasts, and what kind of legacy you will potentially leave behind. Because that $1.8 million number, that you see on your statement, it's not all yours. A good chunk of it is already earmarked for federal and possibly state taxes. So you have a partner in crime, so to speak. And the problem is, really, most people have no idea just how big that chunk is until they're already in retirement, when their options to fix it are quite limited at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly right, John. And the big part of this is that yes, you have the silent partner known as the IRS. Unfortunately, you're the one that's been taking all of the risk in this relationship, and the IRS is looking to profit from that. And so they've structured the rules around withdrawals and things like that to their benefit, not to yours.
hmm
And we spend a lot of our time educating people on what this could potentially look like based on the direction they're going, and then showing them some comparisons of the options that they have to fix that. Right. So I think that what we wanted to do today, if I'm understanding correctly, we had an example case study of somebody who was approaching $2 million, a little short of that, about 1.8 million in retirement funds, and we wanted to take a look at uh, what the taxes in retirement might look like for somebody like that. Talking about where their money is held, what types of accounts, what the tax status is on those accounts, like Roth accounts, pre-tax accounts, your taxable brokerage. This goes back to what we
hmm
always talk about with your taxable, tax deferred, and tax free buckets. And then
Yep.
sort of run through some some realistic scenarios so you can see the range of possible tax outcomes and how this works. Okay, so it's basically just a case study here on this part. And then most
Yep.
importantly, we want to talk about the strategies you can use before and during retirement to keep more of your money in your pocket and less of it in Washington, D.C.'s. And by the way, this helps impact things like longevity risk, asset longevity risk, and things like that. So, John, I think you wanted to start talking about the starting point of this conversation with this particular case study.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes to the core of pretty much everything we do with every client that we work with, which is we have to come up with a starting point, right? We got to know where we are today. And I don't mean the starting point of, going all the way back to the beginning of when you first started working and started saving and what you did at that point. I'm talking about where you are today so we know what we're working with and how we get where we're planning to go into the future. So, let's just start off by painting a picture here. We'll assume our hypothetical retiree, we'll just call her Susan. We'll assume she's 60 years old, married, and planning to retire at age 65. And we already mentioned Susan has $1.8 million total in investments. So here's the breakdown. $1.3 million are in her 401k and traditional IRA. So that's $1.3 million in those two types of accounts. And then she has $300,000 in a taxable brokerage account and $200,000 in a Roth IRA. Now, she'll also get Social Security benefits starting at age 67, worth about $45,000 a year for her and her spouse combined. Now, right away, you can see where the problem lies. The majority of her assets, $1.3 million, are in pre-tax accounts. Remember, 401k and traditional IRA. That means every dollar she takes out from that portion is fully taxable as ordinary income.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people get caught off guard. I don't know the exact way this should be balanced, but I can tell you that having that 1.3 million in pre-tax accounts is out of balance with the proper structure you would need for your taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. There's too much in the pre-tax. But let's just take that 1.3 million
Mhm.
for the time being and take a look at it. And you say, look, I'm in the 22% bracket or I'm in the 24% bracket. And you might think, okay, I'll lose about a quarter of this money to taxes. But unfortunately, that's not quite how it works in retirement. Um, you're not just paying tax on the withdrawals. When you take the withdrawal, you might also trigger taxes on Social Security. You might push yourself into a higher Medicare premium through IRMA surcharges, and you also have to consider your state taxes depending on where you live. All of those factors interact with each other. It's a story we talk about a lot. So, how do the taxes erode our retirement savings here? Well, let's do some math. Okay. If Susan takes out $100,000 a year from her pre-tax accounts to supplement her Social Security, that entire $100,000 counts as income. So let's say
Correct.
she's here in our home state of North Carolina, where the state income tax is around 4.75%. So if you combine that with her federal rates, likely averaging somewhere around 22%, now you're looking at roughly 27% total tax on those withdrawals. So out of the $100,000, that means 27,000 goes in taxes and 73,000 lands in her pocket. So,
Mhm.
John, if we multiply that over a 25-year retirement, because remember, we're generally not planning for retirement of 1 year or 2 years or 3 or 4 or 5 years like we did, several generations ago. We have long retirements now. If you do this over a 25-year retirement, you're talking over $675,000 in taxes just from her withdrawals.
Mhm.
And that's assuming that rates don't go up. All right. If federal rates rise just another 3 or 4% in the future, which many experts believe is likely given our national debt situation, that number could be closer to $800,000 in taxes.
Staggering. Yeah. And if we're not even including the impact of required minimum distributions, or otherwise known as RMDs, that kick in at age 73, right?
Exactly.
And if Susan hasn't strategically drawn down her pre-tax accounts before then, the IRS will essentially force her to start taking larger and larger withdrawals each year, whether she needs the income or not. And that can push her into even higher tax brackets later in retirement, which is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So So yeah, so let's kind of let's continue down this path a little bit here and talk about the different tax bombs or tax torpedoes that can wreck a financial plan, and kind of go into the Social Security and kind of the Medicare part of this so that people understand what you were mentioning earlier. So, one of the sneakiest parts of retirement taxation is how your other income can make your Social Security taxable. So, for Susan, taking large withdrawals from her IRA in the same years that she collects Social Security could cause up to 85% of her Social Security benefit to become taxable. That's another three or upwards of $5,000 in taxes each year that many retirees never really calculate or think about, and they don't see it coming. It kind of hits them, blindsides them, hits them by surprise, right?
Yeah, exactly, John. And what's happening here is subtly in this situation, we're introducing two major retirement risks.
Hmm.
One of them is longevity risk. And we've done a previous podcast on this. I should have looked back to see when that was, but we've done a previous podcast on longevity risk. Go to our website, crownadvisorgroup.com. We have all of them listed there. Longevity risk is essentially the fear of running out of money in retirement. And the second retirement risk that's being introduced here potentially is excess withdrawal risk. Because as these taxes start to stack up on top of each other, as the surcharges in Medicare, as Social Security taxes added in, Susan might find herself in a situation where she needs to start withdrawing a little bit more money than she originally was taking out to keep up with her standard of living. And what she might be triggering at that point is excess withdrawal risk, which could be another silent killer on the portfolio. Okay.
Yeah,
Excess
totally agree.
withdrawal risk oftentimes leads to longevity risk. All right. So let's talk about Medicare. If your income goes over certain thresholds, currently $206,000 for a married couple in 2025, you start paying what are known as IRMA surcharges. IRMA surcharges are surcharges on your Medicare premium. And generally, these aren't small. You can go from paying about $175 a month for Medicare Part B to over $500 a month per person. So, look, over a 20-year retirement, that's tens of thousands of dollars lost to surcharges that could have been
Hmm.
avoided with proper income planning. All right.
Totally agree.
So, we're going to talk about some strategies to reduce the tax bill. But before we do, I'm going to give our standard disclosure here and disclaimer is that we are not providing any specific tax or legal or investment advice. All right. Please contact your CPA, contact an attorney, contact your
Mhm.
financial planner for specific advice related to your information, your investments. But we're giving general information here and we're walking you through a general case study that we have, right? So, what can Susan and really anyone listening who sees themselves in her situation, what can they do about this? Well, I think one of the first things you need is a tax map, right?
Hmm.
A tax map of your retirement. Just like if we're getting ready to go on a trip, we've got to get out the GPS. John still uses the old Rand McNally maps. He pulls them out of his
I
glove
love them.
compartment.
They're so great.
Yeah, they're great. He uses the highlighter and uses pencils and marks all of his stops. We have to have a map, right? So in this case, we need a tax map for retirement. And that means projecting year by year what your income, your withdrawals, and your tax rates will be, not just for the first 5 years, but over your entire retirement. And folks, plan like you're going to live forever, okay? It's the
Right.
best way to do this and reduce stress and help you increase peace of mind as you're going through this planning process.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point there, Bill. And for someone like Susan, one of the most powerful strategies that we actually we actually came up with for her, and I know that
Oh, Lord, here we go.
the
What is
audience is
it?
going to be shocked when we tell them this, but one of the most powerful strategies that we were able to design for her plan was Roth conversions in the early years of retirement, or even before retirement, really. And again, folks, that's when you take money from your pre-tax account, pay the taxes now, and move it into a Roth IRA where it can grow tax-free and be withdrawn tax-free later on. Now, by doing this in lower income years, you can fill up lower tax brackets without bumping yourself or jumping into higher tax brackets, where you would cost yourself even more in taxes. So, yeah, I know, shocker, right? Roth conversions.
I think that going forward, starting in episode 26, we just need to change this to the Roth conversion podcast. I mean,
It would
the
probably be fitting.
but we do joke about that a lot, and if you listen to other episodes you'll see that. And again, the reason we do is we are so limited in the tools that we have to help people restructure the tax problem that they have, and Roth conversions is one of the best options out there. There are a few different products and other strategies you can use, especially for high net worth and high income folks that are out there, but Roth conversions are available essentially to everyone. So it is a reason that we talk about them so often on here, because they're so useful for what we're trying to accomplish. But I would say that another strategy is to draw from taxable accounts first, giving
Hmm.
your pre-tax accounts time to be converted strategically. So you can essentially pair the withdrawals from a taxable account with your pre-tax account that you're working on doing Roth conversions. And this way, it helps you coordinate your Social Security claiming strategy to potentially delay benefits until you've moved a significant portion of your pre-tax money into Roth accounts, keeping your taxable income low in the later years. So it's almost a three-pronged strategy we're talking about here. There's a Social Security timing strategy, there's a Roth conversion strategy, and there's a withdrawal strategy from taxable accounts that we're talking about using in conjunction with one another. So that clearly is going to require some planning and some analysis to complete successfully.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And back to your standard disclaimer and disclosure a few minutes ago that this is not advice we're giving, but these are actual things we've helped clients utilize, strategies that we've been able to help them put into place. So, but we don't know if it's right for you, and you're not going to know if it's right for you unless you have someone help you determine and look at your situation in more detail to figure out whether or not it would be appropriate to delay taking Social Security or doing a Roth conversion strategy of some kind, or taking withdrawals from your taxable accounts first. Those are all things that you really need to um, look at very carefully prior to making those decisions. And folks, quite frankly, um, let's don't forget about other options you have as well, like qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs for those who are charitably inclined. Once you're 70 and a half or now 73, if you're already taking RMDs, but if you're about to turn 73 is when you'll start taking them now. You can send money directly from your IRA to a qualified charity, and it counts towards your RMD, but doesn't show up as taxable income. So that's another way to help minimize tax on your income, during certain years during retirement. So that's another possible strategy you can look at, right? So, Bill, let's talk about kind of the big picture here for Susan. And when we add it all up and we take Susan's $1.8 million, it could result in anywhere from 600,000 to maybe just shy of $1 million in taxes over her lifetime if she just lets it happen or sets it and forgets it. Um, but with strategic planning, Roth conversions, tax efficient withdrawals, Social Security timing, she might cut that in half. That's potentially anywhere from $300 to $400,000 more in her pocket. Not all at one time. This is spread out over the lifetime of the tax bill that she's paying. But I don't know about you, Bill, and I don't know about anyone listening to this episode right now, but I can do a lot with $300,000 to $400,000 extra in my pocket over my lifetime. So anyway, it could be
Yeah, I
very powerful.
couldn't agree more. And just to kind of peel the veil back here a little bit, we have such great planning tools available to us now. You know, Oftentimes people are a little apprehensive about technology, um, but technology has allowed us to uh, either create or work with tools that can show you directly the let it happen strategy versus the planning strategy and the impact
Hmm.
of both of those, and and the break even points on your different options that you take. So this is something that's fun and exciting when people see it and they actually can see that they can make a huge difference here in their future, their family's future, the next generation's future. And I think that's the message that we want to leave you with today. We know that you can't avoid taxes entirely. And we're not talking about skirting the rules or doing something that's illegal or unethical. Not at all. What we're actually teaching is how the law works and how the tax laws work, how they're going to be applied to your current situation, what the
Hmm.
cost of that likely will be, and what, if any, options you have to impact that positively in your favor, right? So you can control when and how you pay taxes. You get a little bit more tax certainty in your retirement plan. And as we always say, the earlier you start planning, the more control you have and the less the IRS gets that they shouldn't have.
Yeah, and if you're listening and thinking I have no idea how much of my retirement savings is actually mine, well, I'll be very honest with you folks, you're not alone. Most people have never done the math, and fewer have a plan to minimize the tax bite, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that this is exactly why we do offer complimentary, confidential strategy calls. It's simple, they're easy, they're painless, but will help you run your own numbers and see the size of your tax bill and then map out ways to keep more of your money working for you and for your family.
Exactly. Yeah. And folks, you can schedule a call with us at crownadvisorgroup.com. That's crown advisor with an OR group.com. And just look for the complimentary assessment button. Click on that, answer a few questions, and schedule some time on our calendar for that strategy call Bill just mentioned. You know, happy to talk with you if you have these questions. We're always here to help. And as always, we appreciate you listening and sharing this episode and taking proactive steps to retire stronger. And if you want to hit the like button, share it with your friends and colleagues, we would certainly appreciate that. Bill, anything you want to share with the folks before we sign off today?
Of course, always appreciate everyone listening to this. And, yeah, if you have anyone you know that might benefit from this, you don't have to have exactly 1.8 million. You can have more, you can have less than that. The numbers are going to shake out a little bit differently depending on how that looks. But likely everyone who's moving towards retirement, whether you're in your 40s, your 50s, or your 60s, everyone is going to have some type of a tax situation they're going to have to deal with. And the sooner you look at that and examine it and come up with a plan to attack it, the better from all of that. So I will close it out from here, John. Thanks, everyone, for listening. For John Foard, I am merely Bill Kearney. We appreciate your time today. Look forward to seeing you again on our next Retire Stronger podcast. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.